3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, where we explore strategies for training, competing, and well-being shared through experiences from some of the sharpest minds in the fitness space. Now, welcome your host, Micah Shoemaker.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Real quick, I don't do any type of ad sponsorships, etc. on here, hopefully to keep the listening experience as good as it can be. Real quick, one favor, if you would mind taking, 6 seconds, 8 seconds to leave a review on either iTunes or Spotify, basically wherever you listen to this, I would really sincerely appreciate it. What it does, it helps get it out to more people and pushes it up in the rankings. That's just straight up. I'm honest with you. That's what it does. It would really, really help. I would appreciate it. If you don't want to take that time, that's cool. Screenshot that you're listening to this right now and post it on wherever you post stuff. If it's Facebook, if it's IG, if it's TikTok, doesn't matter to me, MySpace, if you still have that. Whatever's easiest for you, I'd really appreciate it. And sincerely, I thank you. Would love for you to tag me if you'd want to so that I can say thank you over the interwebs. But with all that being said, I appreciate you. Keep being awesome. Let's jump in. I read this quote the other day that was on the Antonio Spurs, or in the Antonio Spurs locker room in 2013 when they won the championship. And it was, I think, very profound. I think something that I've thought for a long time. And when I saw it articulated this way, I was like, man, I just have to share this. The quote goes something like this: when nothing seems to help, I go back and look at the stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet, at the 101st blow, that rock will split in two. And I know it was not that blow that did it, but all that had gone before. A lot of the things that I talk about on this podcast are things that I'm currently going through, are conversations that I'm currently having, are things that I'm currently thinking about and trying to work through. And when I saw this one, it was just so opportune. I think I said this on the last podcast, if you listen to it with Ryan, and man, I encourage you to do that. It's really good. That oftentimes we in life, at least for me, I find what it is that I'm looking for. Meaning, if I'm looking for a reason to be pissed off, there's plenty of those. Come on, somebody. If I'm looking for a reason to find the good in something, if you look hard enough, there are some of those. And I don't believe that's, this, unrealistic positivity, to think that there's good in everything. I think there's an opportunity in everything. You just have to simply find that opportunity, and if you want to. And I think that's what some of the most successful people do in life. But not to get us off track, when nothing seems to help, I go back and I look at the stonecutter hammering away at his rock. I think one of the things that a lot of us CrossFitters deal with, I know I just dealt with it this weekend, is this idea of, not being enough, this idea of, will I ever get there? This idea of, will I ever achieve this goal? This idea, will I ever get this skill? This idea of, will I ever be good enough? It's this like imposter syndrome. It's like, oh my gosh, is someone going to find me out? It's like, am I going to live up to what it is that I believe is my potential? And I don't think that's just, CrossFit. I think that's life in general. It's like, I think about it a lot, right? It's like, am I doing the things that I need to do to be the best person I can be for not just myself, but my family, the people around me? And that's sometimes really hard to conceptualize, yes, one, but then I find it's just really difficult to like get my head around, because it's seemingly ethereal. It's seemingly this target that's ever moving, and it's bound by so many different variables in life, job, environment, zip code that you grew up, like, right? There's always different things. And so there's this tension, I think, between who I am and who I believe myself to be, or who I desire to be. And I don't know, look, maybe this is just a note to self, and maybe I'm crazy and you guys are like, I definitely don't experience that ever. Maybe I'm alone in this. But when I saw this quote, it resonated with me. Look at the stone cutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times, without as much as a crack showing in it. I don't know about you, but sometimes I show up to training and I'm like, holy shit, like, I don't think I've gotten any better. Like, I I perceive the worst, right? Or the other side of it, which is, I think I've gotten worse. Like, I think like, is that possible? To go backwards? Yeah. And that's really what I feel like a lot of days. And I don't know if you feel that way. Gosh, like, I'll show up and I'll do something and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like I could have done X many unbroken last week, or I did maybe do that. And then, oh my God, this week I'm like just struggling to, put two sentences together, much less, or much more rather, to do a bar muscle up. Or I go to a competition and I compete it, and I expect, this just recently happened, to get an X placement and I get a Y placement, and the delta between the X and the Y placement causes frustration. I've talked about this a lot, the expectation gap between my expectation of what I hope and want to happen and the reality of what happens. In that gap is frustration, and it's being able to, I think, manage those expectations. It's funny on that story, I think, and I've been thinking about this a lot as it relates to burnout, as it relates to frustration, as it relates to some of the the feelings, I would say the more negative side of the feelings that we have in life. I think a lot of it is managing expectations, but then managing emotions. It's like, there are a lot of times in life where I think, man, I'm getting burned out, or I'm just highly, highly frustrated at this situation. And I notice that I'm very volatile towards some of those things. As the cool kids say, you're triggered. And, I've started to try to assess those things and become self-aware around those things. And I think some of them, or a lot of them, at least for myself, have been that I am not managing the emotions around those things in a positive way, or in a way that are conducive to me not being frustrated. Yet I'm wondering why I'm walking around so volatile, frustrated, and triggered, as the kids say. Right? It's an interesting thought. It's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm not saying it's the right way. It's just a way that maybe I've looked at it, and it's kind of helped me reassess, how am I managing these things? How am I managing the way that I'm looking at that? How am I managing the way that I'm participating in this thing, or how I view it, how I talk about it, how I joke about it. And that's another thing too, is I don't really often, I just kind of joke about some things, and I'm like, man, it's like that old adage, mama said. There's truth in every joke. Man, I believe in that. And as I'm literally hammering away at the rock 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it, how much persistence am I having in that process? How much persistence am I having in that endeavor? From what I've found in my own life, oftentimes when I think about quitting, when I think about stopping, when I think about it not going the way that I want to, or in this case, I'm not seeing the stone crack in two, I am not getting the breakthrough, I am not getting to the place that I've deemed more desirable than the place that I am now, because let's be honest, we always think the place that we want to go is, or that we deem we should go, is more desirable than where we are. And maybe it is, but that's a conversation I suppose for later. I'll ask myself this question as a sort of litmus test. And I would encourage you to ask yourself this, see if it rings true, if it resonates. How much effort would I have to put in? How much time would I have to put in? How much work would I have to put in that it would be unreasonable for me not to get results? How many of us have looked at life like that? What is the tipping point in which it would be unreasonable for me not to see the breakthrough? How much work would it be necessary to have that sort of outlook? How many times would I have to strike the stone for it to be unreasonable that that stone wouldn't split in half? And I know it was not that blow that did it, that split the stone in half, but all that had gone before. How much must go before for it to be unreasonable for that stone not to split in two? I call it unreasonable persistence. This is a call to myself. This is a message to myself. I'm messaging myself this. I need to be a little bit more unreasonable. It's a perspective shift. And just like I started this conversation with, I think there are opportunities in every situation in life. It's a matter of perspective. Notice I didn't say that there was good in everything. Some things are just shitty. Let's be very honest about that. But there is an opportunity in everything in life. And it's no different in this moment when you feel, or when I feel defeated, when I feel like not enough, when I feel like the stone is never going to split. It's an opportunity for me to view this situation, to be invited into a mindset that either says, well, how much work do I have left? Versus, how much work would it take for it to be unreasonable that I would not get the results that I'm aiming for? When nothing seems to help, I go back and I look at the stone cutter hammering away at his rock. We can quit, or we can continue to pound the rock. For me, I'm going to keep pounding the rock, and I hope you will too.
Thanks for listening to Brute Strength Podcast. As always, you can head over to brutestrengthtraining.com to connect with us and access the links and resources mentioned in this podcast. That's brutestrengthtraining.com for exclusive content and giveaways just for you, our podcast listeners. Consider subscribing so you never miss out. That's all for this episode. See you next time.